This year's Portland Sunday Parkways season is kicking off this Sunday, May 17th. Presented by Kaiser Permanente, you can join your community in biking, walking, scooting, rolling, whatever, in car-free streets for 5 glorious hours starting at 11 a.m. And this time, it's in Southwest Portland. There'll be food, family-friendly activities, community booths, local vendors, and live entertainment for a 2-mile stretch, including Gabriel Park, Village Park, Multnomah Arts Center, Multnomah Village, and Spring Garden Park. For the full Sunday Parkway schedule, event information, and ways to get involved, head over to portland.gov/Sunday Parkways. That's portland.gov/Sunday Parkways. I know Portland takes pride in our DIY culture, but you don't always have to do it yourself. TaskRabbit has been helping Rose City residents for over a decade with everything from furniture assembly to minor home repairs. And their app is super easy to use, so you can quickly get paired with a list of skilled taskers in your neighborhood who've already been rated and reviewed. Plus, there's transparent pricing, so there are no surprises at checkout. Cross those nagging home to-dos off your list, enjoy your weekend, download the TaskRabbit app, or visit taskrabbit.com today.
This is Your City Could Be Better, because it could be. I'm David Plotz. If you love your city and still complain about it, you're in the right place. My hometown of Washington, D.C. has traffic cameras, automated traffic cameras everywhere, like really everywhere. The city brought in nearly $270 million for more than 500 automated speed cameras last year. And there is a single camera, which I have never yet triggered, as far as I know, that brought in more than $9 million. My girlfriend used to live near a place that we called the $1 Million intersection. And it was called that because it was like in a very quiet residential neighborhood, nothing much going on. But there was a single camera at a stop sign that brought in $1 million. House Republicans, who don't like anything really much that happens here in D.C., have been pushing a bill to abolish speed cameras in the district. It would make the D.C. government a lot poorer. But the question is, would it make our streets a lot less safe? So today on Your City Could Be Better, would your city be better if it had a lot of automated traffic cameras? Bridget Todd, you're the host of CityCast DC, co-host of CityCast DC. You're a fellow DC driver. Can you just describe for our listeners who don't live here the presence of cameras in DC's driving life? What is it like, and what are they watching us for?
Ooh, I think there's sort of two main things going on here. The feeling of what it's like to drive around DC streets when you know there are these cameras everywhere, and then the reality. The feeling that I have, that I bet a lot of people who drive around DC streets, is that you need to be hyper aware of what you are doing at all times, because the moment you slip up, boom, you're going to get a ticket in the mail. That is how I feel when I drive. I feel like I am no longer able to drive reasonably. However, that feeling is not actually borne out by the reality, because in reality, the speed cameras only trigger if you're going 10 miles over the speed limit, which might not sound like much, but is a significant amount of over the speed limit in a residential place like DC. So these cameras are not just for speed. They are also looking for things like being in a bus lane. I live right next to a bus lane is where my apartment is. And so this is one that comes up a lot for me. Also, red light cameras, stop sign cameras to catch for things like rolling stops, and even cameras that dictate where large trucks can go. So it's not just about speed.
Oh, I did not know there's a large truck one.
Yes, I only learned that from doing research for this conversation.
Oh. Yeah, the rolling stop sign one is amazing. And there's a block near Tenleytown where I remember a friend telling me, oh, one of these stop signs has a trigger on it. It's a really fast trigger. You got to stop there for 3 seconds. So every time I drive in that neighborhood, I stop everywhere for like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That's a lot of different cameras.
What's funny is that I remember when they first started rolling out the stop sign cameras, there was somebody on Twitter who said, I completely stopped. This is outrageous. And then they attached the video that the city sent them. And it's like, well, that's clearly that's a rolling stop. I think it illustrates how when you're the one behind the wheel, in your mind, you think, oh, I stopped. And then you get the picture, you see the evidence, and you're thinking, oh, well, okay, maybe they got me on this one.
was just doing the math as you were talking. I was just thinking about this. It is basically $500 or $400 for every resident of DC. Now, a lot of these tickets are going to people who don't live in DC and they may or may not pay them. But think about it. That's $400 that each of us is paying every year, theoretically, to account for the fact that we're speeding or we're running a red light or we're rolling through a stop sign. That's a lot of money.
Part of the prep for this conversation was getting into a little bit of a low-level argument with my husband, who is the chief driver in our household. You know how couples will have the one person that drives and the one person who knows when everyone's birthday is and like handles the social calendar. He drives in our household. And we share one car. I went to the DMV recently to update my driver's license. And they handed me, they said, you have a lot of outstanding tickets to deal with. And I said, me? I barely drive. Certainly this is some mistake. And the woman at the DMV, she lowered her glasses to the bridge of her nose and said, do you got a husband? And I'm like ashamed to tell you how much I owed in tickets.
Come on, Bridget. Come on.
It was $4,000.
Oh my God.
Is that not crazy? Now, this was over the course of years. This was a cumulative amount.
It can't be that many years because you can't renew your registration without paying it off, I think.
That is true. Shout out to the ladies at the DMV. They did me a solid and I did leave with my driver's license. But I also left with smoke coming out of my ears about my husband. And like, it's just the worst because when you share a vehicle, you're like, well, I'm kind of responsible for this, but I didn't get these tickets. I don't even really drive.
Oh my God. I wish I'd been a fly on the wall at the Todd household that evening. Okay, so tell us, again, listeners who don't experience this, how does this work? So there are cameras, they catch you, they take a photograph of you, and then they send you a ticket, right?
Exactly like that. So most of these systems are using sensors or radar to detect violations, and they photograph the vehicle, they get your license plate, and then the registered owner gets mailed a citation. It's a much more impersonal version of this compared to being pulled over, where you might get a little bit of a window to plead your case. Nothing like that. There is no officer interaction. If you're me, you're just getting mailed a picture of something that your husband has done wrong with the car and a fine. And again, for the speeding, generally the trigger is 10 miles per hour over the speed limit. And so if you're going less than that, you're not getting a ticket for this. And so in my opinion, that is a decent amount over the speed limit where, okay, you might have really earned this ticket. Right.
The rolling stops are the one that I get annoyed with. So the stop sign where if you roll through it, you don't stop 1, 2, 3 at the stop sign. And then you roll through it and you get a $50 ticket, $75 ticket. That annoys me because I think most stops signs, you can see, oh, is there anyone there? No one's there. Let's just go. And in fact, the full stop and the restart takes a lot of energy. And it is wasteful for the environment when you do that. How did DC end up with so many automated cameras? Are we unique in that way? I feel like we are exceptionally at the far end of it, but we're not the only city that has them.
You are correct. DC is a little bit unique in this sense. So we really embraced automated enforcement, I would say earlier and also more aggressively than a lot of American cities because DC had two problems, right? This dangerous driving that is absolutely happening in DC and a limited traditional traffic enforcement, right? We've talked about it on CityCast DC quite a bit. DC has struggled with a police shortage. And so we have limited, the idea that you would be pulled. I mean, I have been pulled over by human traffic police before, but that is limited in DC. And so automated enforcement really kind of becomes a more attractive option. It works 24/7. It does not require an officer to physically be out there stopping cars. And it sort of makes sense in a city like DC. And then DC rolled out this initiative called Vision Zero, which is aimed at getting pedestrian fatalities down to zero. And that turbocharged everything. So these cameras became one of the central tools because they were scalable. And also, putting up a camera is a lot more politically simple than redesigning a dangerous street, right? Cameras are one of the few transportation policies that cities can get on the streets pretty quickly.
Right. Can they do it without any permission? Can they just go ahead and do it?
More or less, yeah.
Right. Whereas if you want to put traffic calming measure or you want to bump out of curbs that people drive slower, it narrows the street, the businesses in this there will complain. The neighborhood association will be like, oh, is that correct? Should it be 6 inches wider or should it be 6 inches narrower? Are they fair? Is this a fair way to raise revenue?
I mean, it depends on who you ask. When my co-host and I, Mike Schaefer, had a conversation about this way back when, My big concern was whether or not the cameras were being put in equitable areas. Like, I could very easily imagine a scenario where these are being put in areas where one demographic is being, hit harder than another. I would say that, a lot of critics of the cameras argue that if safety was the only goal, then these cameras would not be placed where they are, right? Like, they're placed in these high traffic areas. And so, as you started our conversation with, it generates a ton of money for the city. At the same time, many of the highest revenue corridors are corridors where speeding genuinely is dangerous. And so, I'm no traffic expert, but I don't think it's a coincidence that these wide, fast commuter corridors where people kind of will naturally accelerate or naturally drive a bit aggressively are also the places that are these huge moneymakers. If you live in DC and drive in DC, you know exactly the places I'm talking about, places like New York Ave, Northeast, Connecticut Avenue, which is, I think you might be a little bit familiar with that personally, David.
Yeah. There's this wonderful piece, I don't know if you read a few years ago, by a woman named Maren Kogan in Vox it was about Strode's. It was the most dangerous road in America is the name of the piece. And it's an amazing article about this road in Florida where an astonishing number of people had been killed over the last decade. Like 27 people had been killed, pedestrians. And the reason is just what you were citing. It's like a sort of a commuter road. People are going fast, faster than they should. But it's also a place where there are a lot of pedestrians, which New York Avenue and Connecticut Avenue are places where there are pedestrians. And that is a recipe for real danger. And so calming that traffic, slowing the traffic down is very important. And so absolutely can understand why you would want, as somebody concerned with safety, to slow people down. And cameras, I suppose, are one way to do it. And so you were talking about how Vision Zero was one of the drivers of the increase in the number of cameras, and that started about 10 years ago here in DC. It's a global movement, but the DC incarnation of it started about 10 years ago. There has not been a decline in fatalities for pedestrians. Pedestrians are still getting killed in DC at a pretty rapid clip. So these cameras haven't made everything that much safer, have they?
Yeah, that, I'm sorry to say, that is kind of the rub here. So I guess I need to speak carefully. It is true that the cameras have lowered people's speeds. However, as you noted, Vision Zero has not been achieved. We are not down to zero, right? And so while we do have very strong evidence that the cameras are causing people to change their driving behavior, that has not necessarily, solved traffic deaths citywide. And so this is my issue with the cameras, is that I think that, you get a map of where they are in the city, to slow down locally around that area, and then maybe you keep driving normally. And I think that too much reliance on this level of automation to solve what is actually kind of a complex problem, a solution that does not involve things like actually making the street safer, actually addressing sort of like, things that are going to actually meaningfully make a difference. Just focusing on something so localized as the cameras, even if they do cause people to slow down, which they do, doesn't automatically get us to a place where we're going to even potentially see something like Vision Zero, where no pedestrians are killed in traffic incidents.
Did you know May is National Bike Month? And it's Oregon, so of course we have a ton of ways you can celebrate. Like this Friday, May 15th, is the official Bike to Work Day. And the Oregon Department of Transportation wants you to stay safe out there. So if you haven't been on your bike for a couple of seasons or are new to the area, get reacquainted with our local traffic laws. Bicyclists follow the same rules as motorists. Remember to remain alert, always wear a helmet, use lights, and wear bright reflective clothing, especially for night riding. And if you don't know your bike hand signals, learn them. They keep you and everyone on the road safe, including other riders. For more tips on how to stay safe and more on statewide events, head over to OregonBikeWalk.org. That's www.OregonBikeWalk.org.
When the unexpected happens, a serious injury, a catastrophic crash, or even a wrongful death, the impact isn't just personal. It can affect families, neighborhoods, and the safety of our entire community. In those moments, you deserve more than legal help. You deserve advocates committed to making Portland safer for everyone. At Diamore Law Group, you're not just getting a lawyer. You're getting a trial team led by veteran attorney Tom Diamore, who has spent over 30 years holding corporations, negligent drivers, and unsafe institutions accountable. From investigating what went wrong to bringing in experts and taking cases all the way to trial, they do the work it takes to protect their clients and prevent the next tragedy. And you don't pay unless they win. Contact Diamore Law Group at 503-222-6333 or visit Diamore Law to schedule a free consultation. They're here to stand up for individuals and for a safer Portland.
I wonder if you look at DC's results with its automated cameras and the results of other jurisdictions, whether you'd see more improvements in other jurisdictions. And the reason I mention that is that one of the unique aspects of DC is that it is surrounded, it's a very small city, and most of the driving, or a significant percentage of the driving that takes place in DC is not done by DC residents. It's done by people from Maryland and Virginia primarily because they commute into work there, or they transit through DC on their way somewhere else. DC is just geographically small. Maryland and Virginia are geographically big. It stands to reason that a lot of the drivers would be from outside. And the people who are non-DC drivers, when they get tickets, have no actual obligation to pay. And so we have these terrible examples of people who accumulate hundreds of thousands of dollars sometimes in unpaid traffic fines, but there's no mechanism that DC has that's effective to collect that revenue. And so even if you make it safer in the sense that DC drivers are like, oh, that really, like Bridget's husband, I really had to pay that money. That's going to make my behavior change. It may not be affecting the behavior of people from Maryland and Virginia who are dominant drivers or prominent drivers in the city. And I wonder if that's different in a city where all the drivers are from the same state and you can enforce equally.
I don't know if you remember, I think this was back in April when there was that horrible accident where I think it was in Shaw. It ended with a bus crashing through a restaurant. And as we now do, when that happened, it was horrible, lots of photos. And people got photos of the license plate of the car that was at the center of this accident. It was a Maryland driver with tons of outstanding DC tickets. And on top of that, people were saying, well, this particular street, people have been complaining about how dangerous this particular street and intersection is for a long time. And to me, that was an interesting intersection of both of these issues. It's like a shortcoming of the system that we have now, and then layering in the fact that maybe this intersection is just designed in a way that makes people prone to dangerous driving.
Right. It feels like the automated traffic cameras, as you say, they do seem to make people drive a little bit slower. But if you really wanted to make cities much safer, the two things you would do is you would target the serial lawbreakers, the serial speeders, the serial reckless drivers. You would target them and really make a very strong effort to keep those people off the streets, like yank their licenses, put them in jail because they're so dangerous. That's one thing. And the other thing is you would make the streets themselves calmer by more speed bumps, like narrowing the streets themselves, just generally making them less speed friendly and, desynchronizing lights, things like that. But in the absence of doing that, because as you say, those are both hard tasks to do. In the absence of doing that, the city is going for speed cameras. In your case, have the automated cameras changed your behavior?
It has changed my behavior, but again, I have a map in my head of the cameras and I slow down in those areas. And I will say that in my research for this, I found that there is some evidence to suggest that people who are constantly getting these automated tickets, that is also connected to dangerous driving down the line. And so there's some idea that maybe this cannot just be about people, whether they're lowering their speeds when they see the cameras. Is the city able to create this like network identifying potentially risky drivers and risky driving behavior and who's going to be more prone to that?
Such as your husband.
Yes. No, he drives like that song Black Betty is playing in his ears at all time. We could just be going to Whole Foods and he's driving like some people are just like that, I think.
I don't even know what that means. I don't know what the song Black Betty is, but
it's like a very fast-paced classic rock song.
Okay.
It's like this kind of song that would be used in like a chase sequence in a 70s movie.
Huh. All right, Bridget, let's bring this home. Why are Republicans and Trump-aligned Republicans in particular targeting DC's cameras? It's just that they're annoyed about getting tickets, right? It's not that they actually think, oh, this will make the city safer, or there's no good ethical or public policy reason to target them, is there?
I can sort of speak a little bit to this. I can tell you that Representative Scott Perry For him, it's just annoyance about getting tickets. So as you said, in March, the House Oversight Committee advanced a bill that would prohibit these kinds of cameras in D.C. Bills like this have been around for a while, but this came at a time where D.C. was getting broader interference about the way that it governs itself. And so I read this piece in the 51st that reported that Representative Scott Perry from Pennsylvania admitted that he has been hit with these traffic camera tickets while driving in the city, and that was part of the impetus for him introducing this legislation that would get rid of them in the city. He said, quote, "My goal is to bring driving autonomy back to the district, not only for the people that live there, but for the people that visit. These cameras are a shameless money grab that continuously deter tourists, aggravate commuters, and attack and defraud local residents with hundreds of dollars in fines." And so that, to me, sounds like somebody who was annoyed by getting some tickets in the mail.
So what could your city could be better listeners and other cities take away from our conversation to make their own city better? Should they be pushing for more cameras, or no, if the cameras are not the answer, they should be pushing for other measures?
I would say it's a little bit nuanced. The biggest takeaway is probably that traffic deaths are not random accidents. Cities can influence them through good policy and good design. Also, cameras do appear to help reduce dangerous and risky driving in specific places, especially when we're talking about speeding. But I would say the deeper lesson to take from DC is that this kind of automated enforcement alone is clearly not enough, because we have not reached this vision zero where there's zero traffic fatalities. And so if cities really do want fewer deaths, they need safer street design, they need slower road geometry, they need, protected pedestrian infrastructure, better transit. All of these systems that help deal with dangerous drivers, the kinds of things that sometimes are politically difficult and expensive and that take a little bit of work to get through, cameras can be part of the solution. They're just not the only solution.
Bridget, that was so fun talking about. But you know what? There's an even funner topic for us to discuss in our Word on the Street segment. And I'm going to let you lead this, because this is really your territory. So I'll start with one word. That word is raves.
Yes, I am what you might describe lovingly as a rave rat. I enjoy a good rave. I've been to all manner of, from illegal warehouse raves to more organized raves. DC is actually having a pretty good moment when it comes to house music and raves and EDM and all of that. We've got clubs like Flash and Echo Stage that bring national acts to the district. Also, we had a pretty big, exciting moment when Project Glow had this massive block party right out on Pennsylvania Avenue in front of the Washington Monument with one of the world's biggest house music DJs, Chris Lake. This happened in April, and it was a huge success. And Echo Stage, one of our house music, electronic music clubs in DC, was just ranked as one of the world's best places to see EDM. Mind you, this was above legendary global clubs like Bernheim in Berlin, which is number 21, and Ministry of Sound in London, which is number 24. Echo Stage here in DC was number 5 on the DJ Mag list. So we're definitely having a moment.
Is there a rave every night in DC if I wanted to go to a rave? Or is it really just Friday and Saturday?
I would say, depending on your comfort level, there is a rave every night. If you're fine to be in a kind of potentially sketchy, dank place, you can find a rave every night.
I am not fine doing that. Also, I like to go to bed at 10. So what kind of a rave's now totally inaccessible to me?
Oh, I have the perfect place for you. So this is my segment where I convince David Plotz to go to a rave. I could design this as the sort of Black Diamond rave experience where you really want you want to do it on hard mode or a little bit of a gentler ramp on. So for you, I would say you should go to Flash, specifically their summer series Sundown, which takes place on their rooftop. They have these wonderful legendary DJs. It starts early. The vibes are always fantastic. It's an open air roof. You get to watch the sunset, which is always beautiful and iconic. And it's over by 9 o'clock. So you'll be back at your home in bed by 10 p.m. if that's what you want.
That's amazing. That actually sounds great. How many people at Echo Stage are there? It's a big night. Are there 100 people there, or are there 1,000 people there?
Oh, Echo Stage is thousands. It's a massive club. In my opinion, it has one of the best sound systems in the Mid-Atlantic. I'm even throwing in big New York City clubs in that. It is a massive, massive club.
Now, Bridget, you are compared to me, you're extremely young, but compared to younger Bridget, you're extremely old.
Yes.
Are you, I'm not going to guess how old you are, but are you at the old end of people at raves, or is raving now for everybody?
This is such a good question. I've been in raves where I'm the oldest person there, and I'll proudly own that. But I think that's sort of why I enjoy rave culture, particularly rave culture in DC so much, is that it is pretty inclusive. It's the kind of thing that you could be somebody who is in your late 30s, 40s, 50s, go solo and still find your people. And you're not going to find people who are like, what's this old person doing dancing on the dance floor? That's like why I enjoy these spaces. Yeah. The community spirit of just like letting go and letting the music take you on a dark dance floor.
And is it all EDM, or am I going to hear Madonna?
You can hear Madonna. It depends on what you want. I definitely gravitate more toward house stuff. But yeah, if you're looking to hear a little like familiar, I would say more like the Depeche Mode kind of vibe, like that, there's always a dance floor in DC playing Joy Division or something like that.
And do I have to take drugs or not?
Drugs are totally optional. I know people who are stone cold sober, and that's part of it for them. I've also been to sober raves in DC. There's a really fun series called Daybreaker where it's geared toward sort of wellness. And so you go very early and they've got coffee and kombucha, and it does feel like a rave, but there's no pressure to do any kind of substances. I will say substances is part of rave culture, but it doesn't have to be.
And how expensive is it? Does it cost to get into Echo Stage?
Echo Stage is one of the pricier places to see a show. In my opinion, it's worth it. If you're looking for something that's a little more economical, DC's newest warehouse is called Berta. And I went there for New Year's Eve, and it was I think it has 3 stages and installations, and it's like acres. It's like a huge, huge, huge place. And I think it was like $25, and I got to see like 7 different DJs.
Yeah, that was my last question, actually. Am I going because there's some DJ I want to see, or am I going because I'm just going to go dance? Or is it like, oh, no, DJ Knowledge is playing?
It depends. I think in DC, I think it's really about you just want to go and dance. Like when it's not so expensive, the stakes are lower and you can buy a ticket and just see. Like I buy tickets to stuff where I don't even know the DJ just to experience them and see what it's going to sound like. I think when it gets to be a little pricey, that's when you have to be like, okay, well, I have to really want to see this DJ. I really have to know this DJ to plunk down my $70 or something for this experience.
So a DJ can be really great or not great. Like it really can make a huge difference.
Oh, yes. I've seen DJs who I like and I listen to their music and then I go see their set live and I'm thinking, that was a bust. You just pushed buttons and you didn't really get to see anything good. There's like a feeling that you're looking for on a dance floor that even DJs that I like can't always bring that feeling.
I just thought it was like, do they play a Fergie song or they don't play a Fergie song? I didn't realize that there was a whole thing like that. But obviously, I guess the great DJs make tons of money and are international celebrities. So they must have a special set of skills that make things special.
Have I convinced you to come raving with me, David?
Totally. The idea of the Sundowner sounds really nice. I like to go dance. That seems nice. I mean, I'm a billion years old, Bridget, so I don't know that they would actually welcome me, despite what you said. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm being cynical.
Yeah. When we talked about raving on CityCast DC, my colleague Julia asked if I had any advice for people who were older or feeling nervous or, flying solo. And I would say, like, at least the places that I go, people are very welcoming. There's this concept in raves called PLUR, which stands for peace, love, unity, and respect. And I think that a lot of folks in DC try to bring the PLUR vibes to the dance floors.
Oh, that's so great. That was wonderful, Bridget. I'm convinced. Bridget Todd, co-host of CityCast DC, thanks for coming on Your City Could Be Better. Your city could be better if it had Bridget. Listen to Bridget on weekday mornings on CityCast DC. That is all for today's episode of Your City Could Be Better. I'm your host, David Plotz. And our producers this week were Lizzie Goldsmith, Priyanka Tilve, Bridget Todd, and Annie Reese. Our music is by Carl Christensen. Is it rave music? I don't know. Bridget will now dance to it. If you are enjoying the show, why not tell your friends, rate the show, and leave us a review wherever you get your podcast. We'll be back next week with another conversation about how your city could be better. See you later.